You'd be hard-pressed to think of a video game series that's more iconic than The Legend of Zelda. With its over 30-year history, there's a staying power that most can only dream of, and I can't remember a time where I didn't even know about the series. As most who probably watch my content know, I'm a huge Legend of Zelda fan. I could sit down with any title in the series and thoroughly enjoy myself any given day in the week. So I wanted to make a video about my favorite Zelda games, and kind of give a mini review about them. Nothing too in-depth, but just an overview about why I like them so much. So I'm here today with my top 5 Legend of Zelda games. Something important to note, this is obviously going to be heavily biased and based on my opinion. Things that I factored into it were how much I enjoyed each game, how much of an impact it left, and what it is that I look for in a Zelda game. So, let's get to it.
Number 5.
The Legend of Zelda: A Link to the Past was released in 1992 for the Super Nintendo to much fanfare. It was the entry into the 16-bit era for the series, and it would be what almost every following Zelda game would look to for inspiration on what to be. The game had a big world with much to explore, and after only a short intro section would give you complete freedom to go and do whatever you wanted. I remember as a kid starting a new file just to see what all I could get before doing any dungeons. One thing I noticed though is how it seems like the start of the game is the most difficult part. It's so easy to take a lot of damage quickly, so the low amount of starting hearts really hurts. Luckily, there are health refills all over the world by way of great fairies or just a fountain of them that you can capture in a bottle just in case you get careless. The game also features a second alternative world to explore, the Dark World, and it has its own full set of dungeons and places to explore, and is a more twisted and corrupted version of the one you've grown accustomed to so far. It's a dream for those who just love to lose themselves and explore. Combat, though, it isn't too intricate. Usually it's nothing more complicated than timing spin attacks, but as an evolution from the original NES game, it's a giant leap that would become the base work for all future titles.
Number 4.
If there's something Nintendo seems to do really well, it's making the old feel new again. But they also have a knack of introducing something new that makes you wonder how you lived all these years without it. The visual style for The Wind Waker was drastically different than what people were used to, and even further from what people were expecting after the haunting tone of Majora's Mask. The atmosphere, charm, and polish, though, caused those concerns to vanish for most, and cemented itself in history as a prime example of the beautiful world building and attention to detail the series is known for. Check out how expressive Link is. Look at everything going on around him when he's just standing there in one spot. The world feels alive without needing any input from the player. But it wasn't just the world and atmosphere that made this game great. The Wind Waker took everything from its predecessor and expanded on it. No, really, take anything that Ocarina of Time was known for. Instead of an open field, it has a giant ocean full of islands and a secret to uncover on every tile. Instead of simple directional slashes, you learn advanced sword techniques from a master in your hometown. It made the large-scale dungeons of Ocarina of Time feel small in comparison. You're inside of a volcano, avoiding lava eruptions, then scaling the side of that mountain while the ground collapses behind you, and then before you know it, you're swinging from a dragon's tail to bring the entire roof down on a giant armored parasite. It had escort dungeons, much like Jabu Jabu's Belly, but Makar and Medley had their own unique abilities, and were more like companions than liabilities. Ocarina of Time's items were versatile and fun to use, but the items in Wind Waker had varied uses in combat as well as out in the world. One item can help you swing across gaps and then pickpocket enemies. Another could be used to spin windmills and could force flying enemies to the ground, stun grounded enemies, and ride the wind across huge gaps. Wind Waker to me was what the perfect sequel is, taking what came before and not just expanding it, but also using it in brand new ways. There's a reason that The Wind Waker to many is the best Zelda game of all time. The atmosphere and charm are just unforgettable, and the attention to detail is magnificent in this game. If you haven't tried this game before, it might just be worth charting a course for.
Number 3.
Zelda II was released on the NES in 1988. Being the second in the series, it pioneered many of the things that would become staples in Zelda. It's the origin of sword techniques like the down thrust and up thrust, spells and the magic meter, towns and villages, and introduced quite a few enemies that are now iconic to the series. Though it also has just as many traits unique to itself. Instead of hearts, it has a life bar, and rather than upgrades to your sword or tunics, you gain experience and level up, increasing your stats each time. It also has an overworld you can traverse that has random encounters, and with all this in mind, the game feels a lot more like a role-playing game than the action-adventure the series is known for. The game has so much to offer to players looking for a good challenge, and its gameplay is addictive. It's a side-scroller which is unlike any other title in the series, but the difficulty ramps up after only 1 or 2 temples. There's very little in this game that is entirely luck dependent, so you'll find yourself getting better every time you play as you get used to the combat, and it feels very rewarding as you progress. Nothing feels better than vanquishing a tough boss after many tries before it. Man, those fireworks feel better to me than a hot bath on a cold winter's night. Something that occurred to me though when I was thinking about this list is just how much more of a fantasy setting this game feels in comparison to the rest of the series. The NES Zeldas have this distinct feeling that none of the other games have. They convey more of a Dungeons and Dragons type atmosphere with wizards, knights, and dragons. When you look at the artwork and backstory of the games, you'll see more of what I mean. Zelda II is the first Zelda game that I ever played, and it has an unmatched charm that's yet to be replicated. It's the kind of game that you either love or hate, and I'm definitely one that thinks it deserves a spot on the top 5.
Number 2.
When it comes to Zelda games that affect people's entire perception of the series, Majora's Mask definitely ranks up there among the most influential. Majora's Mask is a direct sequel of Ocarina of Time featuring a more experienced Link. He's looking for his lost friend at the beginning, but things turn ugly when a Skull Kid donning a strange mask steals his horse and his most important possession, the Ocarina of Time. Chasing after, he finds himself stranded in the land of Termina, a world that's doomed to destruction in just 3 days. So right from the start, the game gives you an extreme sense of dread and darkness that doesn't go away. The doomsday clock on the bottom of the screen makes sure that you never forget what's really at stake, and the constant ticking of time allows the game to create a living world full of real consequences. Whether you do anything or not, the characters in the game will continue to live their lives. While you uncover the secrets of a dungeon, a young girl was trying to protect her home from invaders all by herself. During your trip to the bank, an old woman was mugged in the street and the thief got away. While you solved a puzzle, 2 lovers lamented the fact that they couldn't spend their last days together. Despite your ability to control time, there's still a looming fear that you might not be able to save everyone. Some souls that couldn't be saved were preserved in the form of masks, which create the core of the gameplay. They allow you to gain special abilities or even transform into another species and fill their shoes, like the ability to fly or skipping of a Deku Scrub, the strength and speed of a Goron, or the swimming ability of a Zora. Additionally, there are masks that enhance Link in his normal form, like the Bunny Hood to boost your speed while having access to your items still, or the Blast Mask that allows you to use of bombs at any time, with the small drawback that the bomb is directly strapped to your face. Some have minor effects though for specific quests, like gaining information on a missing person or parading chickens in a conga line. The dungeons are also on a much bigger scale than in Ocarina of Time, often taking more time than the game allows when you're first playing through. I've barely scratched the surface so far about this game, but needless to say, this is a Zelda game done right. Interesting characters, a world ripe with exploration, lots of items and masks to mess around with, big dungeons, and a world dripping with atmosphere. What more could you ask for?
Number 1.
When I think of The Legend of Zelda, this is the very first thing that comes to my mind. And not just for the reasons you might be thinking of. A Zelda game to me isn't just the big world, or just the sword play, or just the lore and backstory. It's all of those things combined and more. More exploration, more world building, bigger dungeons, an evolving world that expands the more you progress. See, for me, the Minish Cap embodies all of this. It's such an enjoyable and full experience that I constantly see myself going back to playing. It perfects the work done by previous titles in the series. It's got a big map like Link to the Past, but with more things to do in each area. This is enhanced by the tiny world of the Minish. Now, small mundane areas that were meaningless before could be hiding entire communities to explore. It's got the swordplay and techniques we've seen from other 2D Zelda games, but more refined and plentiful, like the down thrust, the great spin attack, and stabbing as you roll. It's got great backstory and lore that stays relevant through the timeline. How does Link get his hat in Legend? How did the Four Sword come to existence? Even little details that most don't think about are talked about in the game. NPCs will also do more than just make a few comments now. They'll help you along your quest, give you items and tasks, and a lot will want to fuse with you. Which brings us to a mechanic that's unique to the Minish Cap, Kinstones. Kinstones accomplish multiple things at once, and add a lot to the game as a result. Every NPC now has the potential to unlock rewards and secrets on your quest. They make revisiting areas more worthwhile, not only to hunt down new people to fuse with and to pick up treasures from previous fusions, but they cause the world of Hyrule to evolve over time. It's a feature that isn't too intrusive, but it plays into the world of the Minish Cap. And what a world that is. See, the visual style is fantastic. Even the smallest area has all kinds of details put into it. From boss rooms you'd only see once, to areas you're always standing around in. On top of aesthetics, it's the music that really solidifies the character that this game offers. Notice how different each area feels from the last. I could go on about this game forever, but my words wouldn't do the game justice. There's so much attention to detail in this game, and the artwork is just fantastic. Even now, I find new things I never noticed about the game before. I know I'm just gushing here, but I'm being completely honest when I say that this is a perfect example of everything that I want out of a Zelda game. If you haven't played the Minish Cap yet, I highly recommend you at least give it a try so you can see for yourself just why I love this game so much. Well, that's my top 5 Zelda games. The series is so incredible that it's really hard to pick what's the best out of them all, but that's what makes it so much fun to talk about. So, what did you guys think? What were your favorites? Did you agree with mine? Let me know in the comments below. I'd love to hear your thoughts. So for now, thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.